Good take or deep reach?
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's another edition of Good Take or Deep Reach. Randip, Dan Ricci with you here, and today we're going to focus on the Vancouver Canucks halfway through the year, so we got to ask the question, who is the Canucks' best player this season? Let's start with you, Dan.
For me, it's Brock Besser, and I know a lot of people are probably raising a Spockian eyebrow at me with that, but he's been the best forward on this team, and the key here is all season, from the first week until now. He has realized his potential as a top-line forward. We've seen glimpses from Besser, certainly in his rookie year. We all thought he'd be a future, Maurice Richard, Rocket Trophy contender, but that hasn't really happened. He's back to being that dynamic threat every time he touches the puck. Brock Besser has been the Canucks' best player on the whole this year.
Okay, that's a deep reach. And listen, Brock Besser has had so much improvement in his 200-foot game. There's no question. He's rediscovered that shot. He's a better playmaker. But we're not given, participation ribbons here as, hey, he's improved. We're talking about who's the most valuable player, who's the best player. And for me, that's Thatcher Demko. Looking at the last 2 months of hockey, he has been the Canucks' best player. Their turnaround in the month of March has to directly do with Thatcher Demko's play. So to me, Brock Besser, that's a deep reach, man.
I'm not going to argue against Thatcher Demko too hard. I mean, the guy has posted, a 950 save percentage here in the month of March. He's been unreal, but it's a hot streak, man, and a really long one at that now. And maybe he goes Hamburglar and does it like we talked about last week and really pulls the Canucks back into the playoff race. But I can't really get over February. The Canucks had 2 wins in the month. And for all of us who have been watching every single game of this team, that was actually a time where they were out shooting and out chancing opponents, something they're definitely not doing right now, and just relying on Thatcher Demko to steal them game after game. And in that month of February, though, Demko had a sub 900 save percentage. So did Braden Holtby. So it didn't matter how well the Canucks were playing, their goalies weren't making the saves in the big moments. And so when we talk about who's been the best player over the whole season, it's still Brock Besser for me, because I think he's been the more consistent player.
Okay, but if you look at that save percentage dating all the way from February 1st till now, it's 922. So even though he had a sub 900, it's still a very good sample size. The first couple
that's
of weeks,
like a baseball player, having a tough month of April, and then he goes on a heater for the first 3 weeks of May, and all of a sudden he's batting 320.
No, but
come on.
Any stat can be taken that way. Brock Besser was top 10 in scoring or top 5 in scoring to start off the year. Now he's cooled down. I'm not using that against him. That's the nature of sports. Stats, sometimes they're going to uptick, sometimes they're going to trend downwards. Brock Besser has played well this year. He's a guy that is now providing a little bit of both scoring and playmaking. But Thatcher Demko, the way that this team is made up, and I mentioned in one of the previous videos, and I got absolutely killed in the comments, people saying, how can you say the goaltending is the most disappointing? It's because the Canucks are designed in a way where their goaltending has to be good. They has to be borderline elite for them to win. And that's exactly what's going on right now with Thatcher Demko. So to me, this isn't necessarily about, hey, an uptick, and this is a recent trend. He's playing out of this world right now. But in order for this team to have success, in order for the Vancouver Canucks to even think about the playoffs, I'm not even saying they're going to get close, but even to think about the playoffs, Thatcher Demko has to be the best player, and he has been over the month of March. As he mentioned, 6 wins, 1 loss, 953 save percentage. He's been Vegas Demko. That's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a better version of Thatcher Demko, even better than that.
Yeah, we're seeing bubble Demko again, and that's so huge for the Canucks. And look, the playoffs are a long shot. We talked about that before, but it's going to be Demko that potentially brings them all the way back. He's going to have to be that guy, and potentially, if he does, he'll end up being a Vezina Trophy candidate at the end of the year if he's able to carry this for that long. And the good part about this debate, Randy, these are 2 players that are performing extremely well, and I would say they came into the year as still a bit of question marks for Jim Benning and this roster. They're 2 massive parts of the future, and ones that have solidified themselves as part of this Canucks young core. So even in what's been a very disappointing season, these are 2 things that whoever is steering this ship in Vancouver for the next little while you know, or you feel pretty good about your number one goalie moving forward in Thatcher Demko. And, you know, you've got an elite top line winger in Brock Besser as well to go with Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes and the rest of them. I guess the bigger question, though, is now for the second half. For the most part, it's been disappointing, but what needs to be better in the second half for the Canucks?
Okay, for me, I think it comes off the ice. This is a big situation for the Canucks right now as playoffs seem far. And I know they're trending in the right direction, but guess what? Other teams are picking up points. So looking off the ice, there needs to be clarity on the decisions made. That improvement has to come from you trade those tradable pieces, whether it's Tanner Pearson, whether it's a Brandon Sutter, whether it's your depth defenseman like Travis Hamonic or Jordy Ben. You got to figure out what you are going forward, who's in the picture, who's not. And I know this year's trade market is a little wonky, it's a little weird, but there are Canadian teams that are trying to avoid the 14-day quarantine. There will be a market for depth players. So for me, this is off the ice. Jim Benning, Francesco Aquilini, the owners of the Vancouver Canucks, they got to sort out, all right, what are we? We're not probably going to win the cup. So therefore, you better start dealing and you better get something back for some of those assets that you have, some of those players that you have. What about yourself?
I'd really look at Tanner Pearson as being a big piece for, you know, the Oilers are probably looking for a second line left wing. The Maple Leafs have talked a lot about adding to their forward group. Pearson can even do a little bit of penalty killing. I know that's an area that the Leafs would like to improve as well. And maybe you get a little crazy, maybe even think about Tyler Mott, as Elliot Friedman mentioned in 31 Thoughts last week, with some teams calling the Canucks on those players. But for me, you know, we came into this year expecting a lot out of Quinn Hughes. And I know the points are there, but his overall game just hasn't been. And even, you know, last night, he's getting walked by Artem Zub of the Ottawa Senators. Not something you would have expected out of Quinn Hughes. His skating doesn't seem to be the way it was last year. Is that an injury? I don't know. But I think that's, you know, when we're talking about the pillars of this Canucks franchise, Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, two that are going to take this team into the future and potentially build another Stanley Cup contender like they had in the height of the Sedin era, you need Quinn Hughes, and both he and Elias Pettersson, once he comes back from injury, to really start to prove again that they are the building blocks of another potentially great Canucks era of hockey. And I think there's more question about that now than there was at the start of this season. And it's only going to get more because they have to sign their big contracts, their second contracts this offseason. I think you want to see Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson really show themselves as the franchise pillars we thought they were at the start of this year.
Well, you talk about Quinn Hughes, it feels like he's getting walked every single game. So you want to see some improvement on the defensive side of things. No question on that. Hit us up in the comments. Let us know who you think the Canucks' best player has been this season, halfway through the season. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you next time.